All right, everyone. I just want to go over now the whole part about simplifying expressions that was on your check-in. You were given two questions up there. And the first thing I want to do is just kick off with the idea of how you cannot simplify unlike terms. So that means you cannot add things that are totally different. For example, I cannot add 2 bananas to 3 apples. It just doesn't happen. You might say, oh, okay, well, I have 5 banapples. Well, you're fooling yourself. It doesn't exist, okay? You only have apples and bananas. And we can understand that through variables. If the variable is different, I want you to assume that it could be a different number, a different representation of a value. I want you to keep that in mind. So you can't add or subtract any like terms, unlike terms. You can only add and subtract things that are like. So, for example, in algebra, if a term ended with an F and there was another term that ended with an F, they are like terms. Therefore, you can add or subtract them. Now look at this one where it says distributed property. I have this here, and we realize that through order of operations, we have to do what's inside the brackets first. But if you take a look at this, 2a, A is different than C. These are not the same, okay, variables. Therefore, we can't add them. They are unlike. We cannot subtract them. They are unlike. So in this case, it says subtraction. We can't do it. But we can multiply them. We can multiply. And I want you to think of it this way. I have 2 apples and I multiply it by 2. How many apples do I have? I have 4. If I have 4 bananas and I divide them into 2 groups, what am I left with? I'm left with 2 bananas, okay, in each group. So I want you to keep that in mind, that you can multiply or divide them. You just can't add or subtract unlike terms. So what I do is I distribute the 12 in, and then I multiply the 12 times 4c. I make sure that my subtraction sign is there, or I keep the number to the or I keep the sign to the left at all times. So when I do that, I can now do the multiplication. 12 times 2a is 24a. Subtract 12 times 4c is 48c. I must remember that c. I must remember that a. Now we are done. It has been simplified. Over here on this next question, what I want you to do is to collect like terms. Whenever you see a question like this, collect them. Get out your colored pencils, circle them. So right here, I was looking for all the terms that ended in F. And when I found them, I circled them. I kept the sign to the left of it when I made the circle. Okay, that will help me, and so I don't get messed up later on. And then I went and collected all the C's. I kept the sign to the left, so that'll help me. And then I just left constants in black. And then I wrote it all out here. Notice here when I wrote it all out, I kept all the variables there first. There's the variables, and then the constants and the expression. That's how you're going to see it in your textbook. Now I need to go through and do I understand my integer operations? Negative 3f subtract 7f. Well, if I have a negative number and I'm getting more negative, therefore my number has to be negative 10f. You need to remember the f. It's not just negative 10, it's negative 10f. Well, I didn't have to add or subtract any c's, so I'm just going to put it down. And then I will use my integer operations again. 5 take away 9 is going to give me negative 4. This cannot be reduced anymore. It is simplified, this expression, because I cannot add bananas, apples, and say chickens. I don't know. It doesn't work. So you're probably asking me, who cares? Why do I even have to know how to simplify an expression? Well, here's an expression we would evaluate. Here it is, 3d plus 4d subtract 6d plus 4, and d is 2. In the past, you would take 2 to evaluate, and you would plug it in for d and then do all the multiplication. Look at all the work that created. Or I could take that exact same question, I could collect like terms and realize that this is 7d subtract 6d is just d plus 4. Substitute in 2, I get 6.